So, very interesting phenomenon. President Obama has done fairly well with the economy, certainly in a great economic recovery for some people, but he's not getting much of the credit for it. So let's look into why that might be. First, let me give you the numbers. Stock market has more than doubled its value since 2009. Isn't that amazing? More than doubled its value. Now, of course, there had been a crash under the Republicans, so it was bouncing back a little bit, but obviously that's excellent results. Would think that the rich should love this guy, right? The rich are overwhelmingly more invested in the stock market than the rest of the country, but of course they don't show much love. The GDP has also bounced back sharply in the past 2 quarters. The unemployment rate has tumbled nearly a full percentage point this year, recently falling below 6%. Now remember, Mitt Romney said that in 4 years he would get the unemployment down to under 6%. Obama did it in 2 years. Now, is anybody giving him credit? When the unemployment is high, they're like, oh, Obama, 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 right? Unemployment is low, nothing. Okay, no credit. Gas prices, when they were above $4, they're like, God damn Obama, he controls the gas prices. Look at how much gas is now. Now it's fallen about $1. And people, anybody giving Obama credit for that? No, still no, right? Ebola, Obama brought Ebola here. All of a sudden, there's almost no case of Ebola left. Nobody's talking about Ebola anymore. They thought it was going to be a big campaign issue. It turns out it's a dud. It's not a campaign issue at all. Anybody giving the CDC credit, the government credit, Obama credit for making sure that Ebola did not spread in the U.S.? No. Okay, so look, they've been wildly unfair to him for a great number of reasons that we've outlined in the show, but there is one legitimate thing here. Now, before we get to that, let me show you how unfair it is. Now, only 38% of Americans think the economy is in okay shape, and just 35% of Americans approve of Obama's handling of the economy. Now, you've got all these good economic numbers, and obviously it adopted an economy that was in horrible shape. I mean, disastrous shape. It couldn't be any worse. The only time it was ever worse in American history was during the Great Depression, and then it bounced back. But he's only got 35% approval in handling the economy. Look, definitely a huge part of that is Republican propaganda, buttressed by the mainstream media, who just puts out all their talking points, and then when good news comes in, gives Obama almost no credit for it. But there is something legitimate here as well. Polls show that most Americans think the economy is still in a recession, even though it technically started recovering 5 years ago. So half of that is propaganda, but the other half is that they're right in some ways. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's look at a chart of income inequality. So that is for American history. Now, the greatest income inequality was right before the Great Crash. So we get to record income inequality, and then the crash happens, and we suffer the depression. And right now, we're also getting to the point where we're almost at the Great Depression crash levels in income inequality. So what that means is, yes, the economy recovered, but it largely went to the rich. In fact, in the year 2010, 93% of the gains went to just the top 1%. Isn't that amazing? It's such an unbelievable number. So the rest of us, 99%, got just 7% of the gains. So the reason that a lot of people aren't giving Obama credit for the economic recovery is because they didn't recover. So now look at this chart. Now this shows you inflation, basically, and median wage growth. Turns out that you're not doing any better than inflation. So even though the stock market rebounded and the rich got richer, you're staying at best kind of where you were. So you're not feeling the economic recovery, and if you don't feel it, you don't vote that way. Do you know that the only president who did not suffer midterm losses since 1934 was Bill Clinton in the year 1998? Now, there was a lot of factors there as well. The economy was absolutely booming, and of course the Republicans had made a terrible mistake in going after Clinton aggressively, which he fought off and benefited from, right? So there's always a lot of factors. But here's a huge factor. Turns out that hourly wage growth at the time was more than twice the level of inflation that year, the biggest such gap since the early 1970s. In 1998, the middle class really felt like it was getting richer. So back then, the middle class actually does better, than twice as good as inflation. They actually do get the economic benefits. What do? They go vote Democratic. They go vote for the guy who gave them those economic benefits, Bill Clinton and the Democratic Party. Now, in this case, we do have economic benefits, but they mainly go to the rich. Now, the rich aren't voting for Obama anyway, right? He didn't get the Wall Street vote. Did they appreciate that? Hell no, they bashed them anyway, right? And the middle class thinks, well, I'm at best where I was 6 years ago, so this guy didn't give me much. He didn't produce for me, and that's what you're supposed to do in a democracy. You're supposed to produce for the people, make their lives better. So they think, didn't work for me, and so now they vote against Obama. Now, will that help? And of course, they're not voting for or against Obama in this election, but they are in voting for or against Democratic officials, and so we'll now see if the Democratic Party or the Republican Party control the Senate, and that makes a huge difference in terms of Obama's agenda. And if they vote against him in that sense, will it help? Of course not. What do the Republicans do? Give even more to the rich and drive income inequality even more, cut taxes more, cut regulation more, and provide less programs, including health care, for the middle class. So it's cutting your nose off to spite your face. But, to be fair, President Obama and the Democrats should have thought of that and should have aimed a lot of their programs at the middle class and to make sure that they effectively fought against income inequality for those 6 years, so the Republicans didn't turn around and ironically blame them for doing the same exact policies they wanted to do, but on steroids.